Which of these two pages do you think I'd prefer to scrape data from? This JavaScript rendered page here with a nice dynamic table, or the static HTML table site right here? What if I told you I'd much rather see the JavaScript rendered one every day of the week? So let me go into this and tell you why. So first off, what's the difference between the two tables? Well, the first one we looked at is the JavaScript, the dynamically rendered table. Now what this does is it makes a request to the backend API for the website, asks some data, and then renders it dynamically on the page using JavaScript. The second approach is just the plain HTML table that's in those table tags, where all the data is already there and we just need to pass through the HTML to get it out. But the most important thing about the JavaScript table is that the API endpoint will send JSON data to the front end. And now this is really important and is crucial to the way that we actually scrape this data. So let's go over the method and I'll show you what I mean. And if you've never seen this before, I think you'll be quite surprised how easy it can be. And it's definitely worth looking at and knowing how to do for your scraping needs.
We really want to think about where the actual information that's going into this table is actually coming from. Now, I would always suggest that you do view page source first, but if you come and look at this, you'll just see this notice that says we don't work without JavaScript enabled. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to come down to inspect. It's going to open up this extra window here. It might open up down the bottom for you. I have mine detached. And if we come to the tab that says network, what this is it's basically going to be a list of everything that's happened, all the network activity that happens when I reload this page. So I'm going to hit refresh. I'm going to see all of this stuff coming up here. Now there's a lot of things here. You can see there's a lot of images, for example. We're not interested in those. And I'm going to filter it by fetch/XHR, but we don't see anything. Now, this is quite common. This does happen a lot. What I always recommend you do if you see this and you're expecting to see something but nothing comes up is you just start clicking on links until things do come up. You can see things are starting to happen now. Okay, so we're going to start to load more things up. Sometimes scrolling down will help if there's anything extra to load. But now we've got a good idea of what's going on here. Now I know from doing this before that this query here, the one that says standings and race, this is the one that has the information in it. So let's just make this full screen. So what we've got here is we have a request URL and we have a response. This response here is a JSON response that has this piece of information here, JSON text, and this has all of the data in that we actually want. Now it's a bit more unusual to see it like this because you can see we have like a JSON response and then this specific key that has extra like JSON in it, I suppose. Quite often this would just be the response. If you don't see anything or you want to have a little bit look even further, what you can actually do is come up to application and then there's a local storage here, and this has all of the queries that have happened that we've stored the data for, and this one is the one we were looking at right here, as you can see. So what I'm going to do now is let's just come out of our full screen, is I'm going to copy out this request URL. Now this may or may not work, and this is a good indicator of how much effort we may need to go into to actually get this to work. But I'm going to use the same browser that I've got open. I'm going to paste in the URL, and you can see that we actually get all of this data back. Now here's the JSON text key that I mentioned with all of the information in. If we were to search through for this information, for example, we would find it in here. So I can spell this guy's name right, Thomas, there we are. So you can see that this is the list and this is everything that we've been looking for. Now, to me, this suggests that this is going to be quite easy to get this information. Sometimes though, because we are still using the same browser, we've got the cookies and everything in there. So
let's see how we can take this and put it into code so we can make this request through Python and get the data out programmatically so we can do something with it.
So I've got my code editor open here. We are going to use requests for this, so we'll do import requests. I'm going to set my URL as to the URL that we just put into our browser, which is this long one here. And then all I'm going to do is make a request to this. I'm going to say our response is equal to requests.get on the URL, and then we're going to print out response dot JSON like this. So I'm going to save this, and we need to make this say requests. There we go. Now let's go ahead and let's run this, and we'll see if this is going to be good enough for us. And if it is, that's great. And if not, I will talk about some of the things that you may or may not need to do to make this work for you. Okay, so we do have all the information come back here, and you can see that Python and the response has actually passed this all properly for us. So this is indeed everything that we could have wanted, all the information that we wanted here.
So as you'll see, getting that information from that one URL, that API for that website was really simple. Now, you'll be surprised how often it can be simple like this, but there are cases where it isn't going to be that obvious, and you're going to need to have extra headers and cookies, etc. to make the request from your Python code. My best advice is to try it in your browser first, like I showed you, then look at putting it into Python and seeing what information you get back. If you see that you are getting blocked or rejected without the necessary headers or cookies, you can actually go back to that request that you made in your browser, and you can copy all of the headers out, and then you can filter through them as needed. In some cases as well, you will need a up-to-date cookie that does expire. If you run into issues, for example, that where you manage to make the requests using all the right headers and cookies, but then after a couple of days or whatever, it fails. My best advice there is to use Playwright or Selenium to load up a Chrome browser. So you can actually use it to get the latest up-to-date headers and cookies that you need, and then bring those back into requests and use those to then make more and more data requests through Python rather than using Selenium to load the page up each time. That's a pretty neat intermediary way of doing it. I use this quite a lot. It does work pretty well.